This video is brought to you by my supporters on Patreon. Hi guys, I'm here with a video of how I made the Witch Mercy book, and I'm sorry, but I lost the first bit of this. So what I've done here is just glued basically a box together, but it's not a full box, it's just some of the edges that are going to be the paper, and then the bottom panel. And here I'm gluing on the details that are on the cover of the book onto the book. So all of the black foam is about 4 or 6 millimeters thick, and then all of this colorful foam, like the purple and red that you see here, is 2 millimeters thick. This purple piece that I am currently working on, or was just working on, is the nameplate, and there I'm just layering on 2 millimeter foams to create this kind of like folded look that it's supposed to have. As you can kind of see what's going on here, I think there's like 1 or 2 layers to it, and then I just Dremel everything down to make sure it's all even and smooth. Just a heads up, this video will skip around a little bit just because I'm working with contact cement and you have to let stuff kind of sit for a few minutes before you can attach anything. So I skip around depending on what I'm working on as I wait for glue to dry on whatever piece we just worked on. So when gluing these pieces onto the cover of the book, I first trace out where I want them to sit so that I know where to apply the glue and can see it beforehand before I stick it on like forever. Here, I'm making little buttons because she has these kind of like button-like details on her book on the spine and on the latch, and this is the latch that I'm working on, doing that thing of where I lay everything out and cover everything in glue and then set it aside to glue it all together later, which I think I cut to here in a second and show me gluing all the pieces on. The blue foam for this latch is the same thickness as the black foam. It's 4 or 6 millimeters. I can't remember the exact thickness anymore. And here I'm gluing on some details onto the spine because she has these little spiky things on her spine, or at least I'm applying the glue where they're going to attach. I don't glue it on quite yet, but this was my next clip that I had. Here, I'm dremeling the handle for her book. I did that while waiting for my soldering iron to heat up because here I'm creating pages, or what's going to make the book look like it has pages, by taking my soldering iron and just drawing on lines all the way around the book. You could do a similar thing by scoring the foam, like cutting into it just a little bit and then hitting it with a heat gun to open up those markings, but I just went with the soldering iron for this. So parts of this went off camera more than I thought it was going to be off camera, and that was my bad, sorry. Anyways, what I'm doing here is I'm dremeling around the edges of the book covers to round the corners because I wanted them to have a round shape. I also think that's how her book looks in the reference photos I was using. And yeah, that's all I'm doing here. And then I'm applying contact cement to where I'm going to attach the latch onto the book and onto the latch itself, and making another button because I forgot to make one. So I've put contact cement on the spine of the book where this extra button that I just made is going to go, and while waiting for that to get tacky, I go ahead and glue the latch onto the spot that I needed it to glue onto, and then glued the button onto that spot because all the glue is finally like tacky and dry. I also go ahead and Dremel down the corners of the pages as well to give them a rounded shape because that looked better with the overall book. And then I attached the covers onto the spine. So I'm not attaching the pages, I'm just attaching the front and back cover onto the spine because I want to be able to open the book and use it as a purse kind of thing later on. I'm dremeling this part down on like the edge here just to kind of remove some texture since that part will be seen from the like outside, but it's not a super important step. Next I start attaching the two handles, and those just get placed, like the ends of the handles just get placed on either side of the latch on the front and back covers. Drawing out the word that this nameplate on the front cover has. I'm drawing it out with marker first, using a lighter color, and then going in with a darker color after I figure out any like adjustments that need to be made before taking a soldering iron to it and soldering in those words. Or letters, not words. Soldering in those letters, it's one word. Finally, the entire book is assembled and it's time to start priming it. I'm priming it with a few layers of wood glue. I do one layer to start off with, and then I'm going to move on to this second step because I forgot to do this before I started applying wood glue, which you'll see here in a second. So the step that I had forgotten is to attach the magnets, which is what's going to keep this latch or book closed. I've already attached it onto the back of the latch, and now I'm just drilling a hole with my Dremel into this front cover to attach the other magnet, and then covering that with a piece of foam because these magnets are super strong, and when they stick together they're like super stuck together, so that needs to have a kind of spacer in between it to hold it. It's still super strong, but it's going to make it so I can actually pull it apart without like tearing the magnet out of place. And I did a couple more layers of wood glue and covered the entire book in silver spray paint so that I could get all of the silver details the color that I wanted them to be before going through with brown acrylic paint to paint the front, back, and spine, and then I painted the pages with a kind of off-white color, and it took quite a few layers because this acrylic paint that I'm using is very transparent, or it's not very pigmented, so it took a lot of layers before it finally looked like a solid color. I topped everything off with a glossy coat before moving on to the next step, which is to add this kind of distressing that her book has. And so just looking at a reference photo to try to mimic what kind of wear her book is supposed to have, I took some shades of darker brown or black oil paints to add shadowing and kind of like grunginess to some corners, and then I also took this lighter brown color to kind of add this distressing around the edges, because that's kind of what the reference photo showed it looking like. So I tried to just mimic that as best as possible using paint, and then I topped it off with another glossy coat, and that finishes this prop. I hope you guys found this helpful and enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for future videos. I have a lot more coming. We're almost through Witch Mercy. Okay, bye. Have a lovely day.